Okay, so welcome to this session. This is the interactive session to logistics and transport management for level 300 course, the University of Cape Coast. Okay, so my name is Fanuel, and I would like to spend just a few minutes to take you through the discussions on logistics and transport management. In this lecture, we'll look at how the course works and the things that we need to know, the contact details that you can always contact me on my email and my phone number as a student if you have any questions, especially the emails. Calls are not really welcome, but emails are really good. WhatsApp, I prefer to phone calls to avoid distraction. As we mentioned, the lecture will be normally 9 weeks of learning, 7 weeks lectures, semester reflection, and a field trip. And these are other details about the course. This session is a recorded lecture session, and there'll be quizzes, assignments, seminars, end of semester case studies, group discussions as part of assessment for the course. So the course is to help students to acquire skills to be able to solve problems relating to transport and logistics management in Ghana and globally. So the course content will include introduction to logistics strategy and planning, customer service and other processing fundamentals of transport, transportation modes, intermodal transport techniques, lead time management, expediting, packaging, logistic information system, global logistics, and outsourcing. So let's now begin with the first lecture, which is introduction to logistics. So when we talk about logistics, what do we mean? Logistics, we mean the movement of goods from one point to another, and it entails two main functions: transportation and warehousing. So how do you provide transportation and warehousing to goods and services? So the overall supply chain is a network of businesses and activities working in a sequence of processes, including logistics, to produce, to distribute goods. So all these things are part of the logistics chain. And these are things that will form basis of our discussions in the coming weeks. So what is logistics management? We already know the principle of management, that is planning, organizing, directing, controlling, motivating, staffing, all that. Can mention them. Yeah, so in logistics, when we talk about logistics management, it's just application of management principles to logistics function. So we are looking at the entire process of moving goods, whether from a supplier to a business. That is basically what we're referring to as. So the management process or applying management principles to logistics function. Yeah. So you can see some of the things we're talking about when we talk about logistics. We talk about movement of things by land, by air, by sea. We look at many other options in the coming weeks. So logistics, or business logistics, call it, is applicable in planning, procurement, manufacturing, warehousing, inventory, transportation, distribution, and sales. Yeah. So that is it for now. We'll look at the other topic after this introductory part. So the next point we want to look at is logistics strategy and planning. And this should take us a few more minutes. Well, some 10 to 15 minutes to complete. And so when we talk of logistics strategy planning, we'll be looking at the expanded version of logistics. We'll look at the differences between logistics and transportation. We'll look at inbound versus outbound logistics. We'll also be looking at overview of logistics planning, and then we'll end with logistics strategy. So let's have a recap of what is logistics. Now we talk about logistics has two main functions of transportation and warehousing. And we also mentioned that the overall supply chain is a network of businesses that are connected to each other, including logistics, produce, and distribution of goods. Yeah. So we want to expand the logistic definition a bit here. So this definition here, we are looking at logistics as the overall process of managing how resources are acquired, stored, and transported to their final destination. And we're looking at the process that is involved. We're looking at the resource acquisition, including the planning process. We're looking at storage. We're looking at transportation. So we see these functions now: storage, transportation, resource acquisition, and that process are part of the definition now. And we have seen this already, that logistics goes to all the stages of our value chain. So let's look at the difference between logistics and transportation. So logistics deals with the integration of storage, handling, sorting, packing, and transportation of goods. Whilst transportation only deals with the movement of things from one point to another, basically. So logistics is a bigger topic where we can find transportation within logistics. So these are the functions, the differences or the relationship between logistics and transportation. So we normally will have inbound and outbound logistics. So the inbound logistics are logistics that are covered, or all the activities, logistic activities that are found between the supplier and our company, and all the activities that can be found between our company and our customers become the outbound logistics. So for the inbound logistics, between us and the supplier, our suppliers, it includes sourcing, how to get the best supplier, order placement, vendor, supplier, getting the vendor, transportation and receiving of the goods until the goods get to us. So from the time we place orders until we get supplies, all the activities there become the inbound. Then let's look at the outbound. The outbound now comes from the time the customer places order until they get the delivery of the goods. So it includes customer order processing, transmission of the goods, processing, selection, transportation, all the things. It may even include packaging the items we want to deliver to the customer, and all that labeling. All this are part of the outbound logistics. So let's look at logistic planning. When we talk on logistic planning, what are we talking about? Logistic planning is how we determine the overall logistics process. Okay, how we want to get our logistics process done. Okay, so it includes order management, inventory, transportation, warehousing, materials, handling, packaging, and other activities as an integrated network. So everything, how we want to have all these things done, inventory management, transportation, warehouse, material, everything, how we want to get it done is what we call the planning. How we want to do it, what we want to do, and how we want to do it. That's the planning. Now, when we come to the strategy deals more with how we implement our logistics plan. Okay, it concerns with decisions of how we select suppliers, how we select people to work, how we do select the transportation modes. What are some of the strategies that we are going to implement when selecting people or other logistics managers who are working for us in the company? So the planning stage look at what we want to do, and the strategy looks at how we are going to implement the plans to achieve the goals of the organization. So let's look at the fundamentals of transportation as the next topic. So in this lecture, we'll look at what is transportation. We'll look at transportation versus transport, and we'll look at types of transport, and we'll look at modal, intermodal, and multimodal transport. Now, What is transport? When we talk about transport or transportation first, transportation is basically movement of things from one point to another in a safe and a reliable manner. It's not just pushing the things and then say you have transporting. No, you have to move them in a very safe and reliable manner. That's what we call transportation. Now, important considerations for transportation: the timing, the medium, the packaging, loading, and other issues. So the timing, transportation must be very timely. You have to make sure you send the things when they are supposed to be going. If it's human transport or passenger transport, people must get to their destination to attend conferences, to attend to events, to attend to family emergencies. If it's ambulance transport service, we have to make sure patient get to the doctor on time. All these things must be timed. And medium, how do you transport the people? Is it by air? Is it by car? Is it by bus? Okay. Then the medium can be expanded to include the mode. So we have road transport that you can have commercial bus, and you can also have private vehicles and all that. And then we have packaging, which is also part of transport. When you are moving things from one point to another, you need to package them properly. So you don't just throw things with the bus or the cargo. Okay, you need to get them, and you have to load them properly, and you have to look at other issues involved. Let's go to with transport. So what is transportation? Transportation, we have already looked at the process of moving things from one point to another in a safe and reliable manner. But so transportation involves a process, but transport is a medium of transporting things. So we use transport as a medium of moving or transmitting items. So a car is a transport, a means of transport, for example. But the process of moving things, driving the car, taking people from one point to another is transportation. So both processes, both the process and the medium work together to support logistics management. So types of transport. The road transport is there, which is normally the one we use with cars, buses, and all that. The maritime transport, which is the sea transport. Okay, or call it water transport on the sea, the rivers, and all that are classified under maritime. Then we have air transport by the aircrafts. Then we have the rail transport by the rail. And we can also have the pipeline where we transport things, especially for liquids. Yeah, we know about the West African gas pipeline, for example. It's a typical example of the pipeline. And there are many other forms of transport. So you could see, yeah, the bicycle, the aircraft, the sea, the road, all of them makes different types or modes of transport. So let's look at modal, intermodal, and multimodal transport. And basically here, when we're talking about modal transport, it depends on the modes and types and the numbers that we are using. Okay. So, sorry, before we get to the group assignment. So, we are going to discuss this in the subsequent lectures, but just to give you an idea, we talk about modal transport. The modal transport, looking at using one mode of transport. If it's by road, it's by road. Like, that is it. If it is by air, it's by air. If it's by sea, it's by sea. But intermodal means using a combination of two modes. Maybe you drive to the airport and you fly in the air to another country or another region. That is intermodal. But when you use more than two or three or more, then you are looking at multimodal. Maybe you drive to the airport, you fly by air, and then when you get to your destination, you go by train to your final destination. This is a multimodal because it involves more than two modes of transport. So for the assignments you're supposed to do for 10 marks is to identify a business of your choice and describe the key activities that go into the inbound logistics and those that go into outbound logistics. And then you also need to identify the transportation needs within the inbound and outbound logistics and decide on the transportation choices you would consider for a business. And make sure you justify why you are making this decision. That is it for now. Thank you.